Welcome to NFL Latest News, your ultimate destination for all things NFL. Get ready for the latest updates, in-depth analysis, player insights, and everything you need to stay connected to the heart of the game. Whether you're a die-hard fan or new to the league, we've got you covered with fresh, exciting content every day. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to never miss a moment of NFL action. Let's dive into the latest scoop and get the inside track on your favorite teams and players. The Denver Broncos have just received some exciting news, and it's not just good, it's great. In fact, it's almost a triple win, but I'll hold off on the overhyping. Here's the scoop. PFF, Pro Football Focus, has released their rankings of the top 101 players in the entire NFL. And guess what? The Denver Broncos have an impressive number of players on that list. But it's not just about the numbers. These are young players who are not just here for a short stint. They're here for the long haul. That's a sign of something special brewing in Denver. On top of that, a well-known sports network has predicted that head coach Sean Payton and quarterback Russell Wilson won't fall into the dreaded sophomore slump. This is a big boost for the team as they look ahead. We'll dive into all of this and more in the video, so stick around. Now, for those who are new to the channel, I'm a die-hard Broncos fan, and it would mean a lot if you could like and subscribe if you're as passionate about the team as I am. Your support really helps out the channel. Every year, PFF releases its list of the top 101 players in the NFL. Statistically, if everything were even, each team would have about 3 players on the list. But here's the kicker. The Broncos don't just have 3, they have 4. What's even more interesting is the story behind these players. Each one of them has something special about them that's worth talking about. Of course, there were some glaring snubs, players who should have made the list but didn't quite make the cut this time. I expect them to be on the list next year for sure. There's almost a feeling that some players didn't get the recognition they deserved this time around, but if you look at their stats, it's clear they're among the league's best. Now let's talk about the players who made the cut. It's so exciting to see the Broncos represented so well, especially when you think about how our first player on the list, Garrett Bowles, ranks. Garrett's story is one of the most incredible comebacks in recent NFL history. From being criticized to now being one of the top-rated players, his journey is inspiring. And what's even more amazing is that despite the chance to cash in on a big contract in free agency, Garrett chose to stay in Denver. That kind of loyalty is rare, and it speaks volumes about his commitment to the team. And there's a lot of buzz surrounding the future too, with reports suggesting that the top left tackle in this year's draft class might earn a hefty salary, around $4 million a year. That's a sign of how much talent is being cultivated in Denver and how serious the Broncos are about building something special for the future. There's a lot to be excited about, and we'll break it all down as we go. Stick with us. It's even more exciting when you consider that Garrett Bowles is locked in for the next 3 years. To have him in the top 20% of all NFL players is huge. And when we think about the future of our quarterback, Russell Wilson, this couldn't be more important. A key part of him growing into the player we all know he can be is having his blind side protected, and Garrett Bowles is doing that at the highest level. What's even more impressive is that Garrett's performance this past season earned him a well-deserved $82 million extension. With an impressive 88.8 grade, Bowles ranked as the 4th highest tackle in the entire league. That means we've got one of the best left tackles in the game protecting our QB, and honestly, that's huge for the Broncos. I'm not complaining. We've got a top-tier player locked down for the long haul, and that's something every fan can get behind. Now let's talk about the next player on this list. As we scroll down, you can really feel the excitement building as we get closer to the top 10. The future of this team is looking brighter than ever. One player I was worried about losing was Justin Simmons, number 31, one of my favorite Broncos for years. But here's where things get really interesting. We replaced Simmons with a guy named Brandon Jones. I've been hyping him up since last season when I dove into his film from Miami. I thought if he stays healthy, he could be a game changer for us. And I'm happy to say he did stay healthy and is delivering big time. This past year, Brandon had 3 interceptions and an incredible 89 coverage grade. That's amazing for a safety, but what makes him even more valuable is his ability to stop the run, something the Broncos did exceptionally well last season. It's clear Brandon Jones is a difference maker. What's even more impressive is that he's ranked as a top 12 safety in the league, and when you consider that guys like Derwin James are in the mix for the highest paid defensive players in the NFL, It's wild to think that we've got a Walmart brand safety performing at a Gucci brand level. Simply amazing. As we continue down this list, it gets even better. The Broncos are now past the players we don't have locked down long term, and we're getting into players who are key to the future. Enter the next player, number 37, the best left guard in all of football. That's right, we've got the fourth best left tackle and the best left guard in the league. How awesome is that? With these two players protecting Russell Wilson's blind side, the Broncos are setting themselves up for sustained success. Barring injury, Wilson won't have to worry about his left side anytime soon, and that's a huge win for the offense. The future is looking incredibly bright for the Broncos. Let's keep the excitement rolling because the Broncos are making moves and they're setting themselves up for long-term success. One of the best examples of this is Quinn Miner's decision to take a hometown discount this offseason. This is a smart move as it shows the commitment from both the player and the team to keep building something special. And when you think about the future of the position, you know that the value of the offensive line is only going to rise. The Broncos have been ahead of the game, locking down talent where it matters most. Speaking of the offensive line, let's take a look at Quinn's PFF grade, which came in at 81 with a staggering 99 pass grade. That's amazing. It's clear that one of the main goals this year was to keep Russell Wilson safe. And the offensive line did a solid job as we weren't sacked a lot. However, when it comes to opening running holes, the results were a bit more mixed. Was it the offensive line's fault or was it a lack of production from the running backs? It's probably a bit of both, but with two offensive linemen from this team in the top 100 in the NFL, I'm leaning toward the running backs being the bigger issue here. Still, there's a lot more to be excited about and we're not even close to done yet. Now, for the part that's going to get every Broncos fan fired up, Patrick Surtain II coming in at number 12 on the list. It's so rewarding to see him get the recognition he deserves. There was a time when many of us were unsure, myself included, about which direction to go in the draft. I was desperate for a quarterback, and even though I knew Surtain was going to be an elite cornerback, I was thinking about the positional value of a QB. But thank goodness for George Paton and his ability to see the bigger picture. Now, we have the best cornerback in football, and that's something every opposing team is going to have to game plan for when they face the Broncos. What's even more interesting is that while Surtain came in at number 12, there were still 3 defensive players ranked ahead of him, despite the fact that NFL voters actually named him the best defensive player overall. That's a bit of a snub, but I'll take it as a sign that he's earning the respect he deserves. Sure, you could argue that Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, or Josh Allen deserved a higher spot, but when defensive players who the AP ranked behind Surtain still ended up ahead of him, that's definitely a head-scratcher. But don't worry, we know who the real star is, and it's Patrick Surtain. The best part? We've got him locked down for the future. So Broncos fans, rest easy. We have one of the league's top defensive players secured for the long term. The fact that the Broncos have so many players on this list, more than we should realistically expect, and that they're all locked down in Denver for at least the next 3 to 4 years, with the exception of Brandon Jones, but I'm confident they'll figure that out, is a huge deal. What's even more exciting is that most of these players are still relatively young. Sure, Garrett Bowles isn't exactly a rookie, but you look at guys like Quinn Miner, Patrick Surtain, and even Brandon Jones, these are players who have so much potential and are only going to continue improving. We've got a solid, young core, and they're hungry to take the Broncos to the next level. Now, here's where things get interesting. As much as I'm thrilled with the players we have, I can't help but notice there are a few names on this list that make me scratch my head. In fact, I think there are players on the Broncos roster who had a better season than some of these guys, and that's a conversation worth having. Take TJ Watt, for example. Sure, he's a big name, and we all know the Watt family is popular, but if you look at his numbers this past year, they weren't exactly mind-blowing. He had 11.5 sacks, which is solid, but when you compare that to someone like Nick Bonitto, who had more sacks and played at a high level, it's hard to ignore. The crazy part? Bonitto isn't even in the top 100. I get that Watt's name carries weight, but it feels like there's some political bias here. You can't just ignore the performance of a player like Bonitto, who honestly had a better season than Watt, in my opinion. This is one of those cases where I think stats alone should earn Bonitto a spot on this list. The guy played his heart out and was just as effective as TJ Watt, if not better. If I had it my way, Bonitto would have earned a spot, and maybe even a little cartoon emoji to go with it because he absolutely deserves the recognition. But instead, we're left wondering why a player like Benito isn't getting the respect he's due. Another player that's high up on the list who I've never fully understood the hype around, especially when we faced him, is someone who definitely doesn't deserve to be ranked above Patrick Surtain. We've seen firsthand just how incredible Surtain is, and I'm confident that when it comes down to it, he's a much more valuable player than some of the names listed above him. There's still plenty of room for growth for this Broncos team, but one thing's for sure. We've got some players who are being criminally underrated right now, and they're going to make some noise moving forward. Let's dive deeper into the stats because there's definitely more to unpack here. Take Chris Jones, the defensive tackle, a name that stands out in a lot of discussions. But if you really look at his numbers this past season, he had just 5 sacks and 9 tackles for loss. Now, compare that to someone like Zach Allen, who had 3.5 more sacks and significantly more tackles for loss. When you break it down like that, it's hard to ignore the fact that Allen's performance was just better overall. And yet, no recognition for him? No picture? Come on, StatMuse, you're dropping the ball here. Zach Allen deserves at least to be in the conversation, if not on this list. This brings me to an important point. The Denver Broncos should have had at least 6 players in the top 101. That's right, 6. If you factor in the incredible contributions of guys like Marvin Mims, who was named an All-Pro as a kick returner, he absolutely deserves to be recognized for his special teams impact. We also can't forget about our kicker, who had a fantastic season. All in all, we've got a solid, well-rounded team, and with the right moves in the draft, we can strengthen the areas we're currently weaker in. Luckily, this NFL draft looks to be shaping up perfectly for us to fill those gaps and build even further on what we've already established. And if you weren't already excited enough, here comes the best news. Sports Illustrated just dropped an article predicting that B. Conk, I'm assuming you mean a certain key player here, will avoid the dreaded sophomore slump. This is a huge deal because it speaks to how much better he got throughout his rookie season. Unlike some players who start strong and fade, B. Conk has shown consistent growth, and Sports Illustrated is confident that he's ready to continue his upward trajectory. That's the kind of news every fan loves to hear. But wait, it gets even better. The NFL Combine is just around the corner, and to me, that's the real start of spring. The Combine is always a thrilling time, full of potential and possibility for every team. We're almost through winter, and with everything shaping up for the Broncos, I've got nothing but hope for what's ahead. We've got so much to look forward to, and the best part, the future looks incredibly bright for this team. Let's go, Broncos.